Welcome everyone to today's executive briefing: best practices for data management in the food and beverage industry, accurate grading, and vendor contract management. My name's Obi Kokic, and I'll be the presenter for today's briefing. And before we get started, I'd just like to let you all know a little bit about our company, eSoftware Professionals. Now, we provide expert consulting service to business process automation within the food and beverage industry. Now, our primary focus is implementing, training, and supporting the Microsoft Dynamics Enterprise Resource Planning software. Now, most of our clients are growing companies in the food and beverage industry that all tend to have complex data management and operational process requirements. So for the past 24 years, we've helped these companies better plan and manage their supply chain, implement quality control and grading processes for inventory, better manage government regulations and recall procedures, and gain real-time access into their business information to make informed decisions. Our mid-sized consulting team takes a hands-on approach to improving your operations by examining business problems and then providing technology and best practices that simplify, streamline, and standardize your process to deliver measurable results. Now, food and beverage companies produce and distribute a wide range of products both domestically and worldwide, and they all do it within a relatively volatile marketplace. Consumer demands can change rapidly, and there's new health and specialty niches that can make the market even more complex. Now, some of these demands are long-term, like the continual demand for lower prices, stricter safety requirements, and more detailed labeling. But others can be short-term, like the demand for current popular flavors, new packaging, or new ingredients. The rapid pace of changing demands present a major challenge to food and beverage companies. For example, consumer groups are becoming more specialized, with countless food and beverage niches that are emerging all the time. Now, these might include organic, health-enhancing, allergen-free, kosher, or even halal foods. The channels for food and beverage now not only include grocery stores, restaurants, and convenience stores, but they can also be big box retailers, warehouse clubs, industrial food service, vending companies, and in a lot of cases now, internet or catalog sales. Food safety is consistently in the news, and it continues to be a top concern worldwide, especially in developing countries in Asia and Europe, but it's also a major concern right here in the United States. And a recent example of this is the cantaloupe recall that forced Jensen Farms to recall 300,000 cases of their product in 17 states just last month. Regulations are constantly arising and evolving, and that can affect production, labeling, packaging, and ingredient tracking. Private label offerings from retailers can make it harder and more expensive to get shelf space for your products. And those of you that offer private label services might be experiencing a decrease in customer loyalty as well. Now, beyond traditional vertical integration between similar businesses, food companies are now working with outside companies as well on things like new products, new packaging, regional offerings, and new recipes. And finally, new partnerships can make responding to volatile demand more challenging because companies now need to share information as instantly as possible. So how do you address the ever-changing trends in food and beverage markets? I mentioned earlier that one of our primary focuses is helping companies evaluate, implement, and use technology to better manage their operations. Now, after several years of business process and technology consulting, it was clear to us that in order for emerging companies in the food and beverage market to better manage their process, they needed to address the underlying technology to keep them moving forward and accommodate growth in a changing market. Now, after further research, it became apparent that there weren't many solutions out there that addressed the industry-specific needs required here. And those that did were either technologically out of date, difficult to use, didn't provide relevant reports, were designed for large enterprises, and were just too complex or overpriced for most food and beverage companies. So it was at this time that eSoftware Professionals developed the eFood solution, which is built on the latest Microsoft Dynamics technology. Now, using Microsoft Dynamics NAV, which is a mainstream ERP solution with over 80,000 implementations worldwide, we designed a food and beverage specific system with functionality like product grading, vendor contract management, traceability and recall management, quality control, forecasting, and other processes that we outlined on the slide. And we enhanced that dynamic solution to incorporate all of the original functionality in NAV with our newer industry solution, now referred to as eFood. Now, because eFood was built on the Microsoft Dynamics ERP system, we can take advantage of non-industry specific functionality that any business can take advantage of. Now, by tying the general functions together with the food and beverage specific solutions, we're able to deliver our customers leading edge technology that meets virtually all of their business requirements. Now, also, in the event that our customers have a requirement that's unique to their business, we can further enhance that system to accommodate the new function as well. Finally, having all the same data in the centralized database allows you to have instant access to real-time information based on your job or based on your preferences. So we just covered a very high-level overview of what we've seen in the food and beverage market and what we've done to help companies solve some of these concerns. So now let's talk about one of the items we focused on in the food and beverage industry, which is managing grower contracts. Now, this also includes managing your incoming product or ingredient grading processes. Now, the two topics cover both supply chain as well as the accounting processes within your operations, and the overall goal in this area is to have vendor contracts in place that help keep your vendors accountable for the products that they deliver to you. Now, additionally, it's important to understand the characteristics of what you've received to determine how you can use that product as a finished good. Now, most, if not all of you, have some form of grading procedures. Now, usually that means when a shipment arrives at your receiving dock, you go through a series of tests to determine the composition and quality of the ingredients you receive. Now, that might include visual inspections, counting or weighing that product, sample lab testing for quality, or a wide range of other practices. Now, it's also likely that you have some sort of contract to determine what you'll pay your vendor based on what they deliver. So how do you accurately account for what was received and check that against the agreements you set in place with each supplier? The real challenge lies in where you capture that information. First, where do you capture the contract terms? Is it stored somewhere in a file folder in the accounting office? Maybe it's scanned into a computer and located somewhere on a file server? Or better yet, maybe you have a document or contract management system to store the contract records. Now, all of these methods do a good job of preserving the original contract, but how do we get the terms outlined in that contract to a place that provides the people in operations some real value? Now, what about your grading process? What is it that most food and beverage companies do when they receive products or ingredients into inventory? In almost all cases, the inventory needs to be evaluated before it goes into production. Now, this process creates several challenges. Those challenges can be making sure the grading steps are met and done accurately, capturing and storing the data from grading, planning the use of the graded inventory, and settling with your growers and suppliers. Now, the processes address two major functions. First, the grading determines the quality or verifies certain inspections about the products you've ordered. Now, this includes things like quantity, amount of dirt and foreign materials, item size, and item quality. The second determines or verifies how that product can be used in your finished goods production. But there's a third and often overlooked reason why we grade the incoming inventory. We need to verify that it meets the standards and specifications we set forth with our supplier. Now, in working with food and beverage producers and distributors for a number of years, we've noticed a commonality between most of these companies. They all tend to lack a good and standardized way to capture the contract terms by vendor or product, as well as capture the information gathered during the grading process. Now, as a result of this common scenario, we need to manually review information from multiple manually created records. They then need to be referenced in this automation and capture that against contract factors like price per pound, expected quantity, approximate harvest time, cull percent of acceptable amount of dirt and foreign material, item size, and the sample size. Now, when this is the case, there's a great opportunity for a struggling food and beverage company to decrease costs and improve its plant efficiency but it can also be an opportunity for a successful food and beverage company to become even better and more profitable. The opportunity lies in finding more streamlined, automated, and connected ways to capture relevant information about their vendor contract terms and then align that with the actions and results of the standard grading process. This can then produce improvements related to the accessibility of information, process standards, improved accuracy, decreased labor time, cost reductions, and enhance your reporting. So how do you take advantage of this opportunity? Our recommendation is to evaluate ways to integrate your contract terms, grading procedures, and results into your primary business application or ERP system. Now, once you have the agreements in place with your suppliers and the data stored and ready to use in a centralized system, you can then begin to receive products from these sources. But before you receive products, you need to have a standardized way of evaluating the expected inventory. Now, most of you have these processes defined today based by the product, vendor, or other factor. But I'd estimate that not all of you have a way that prompts you through the grading process based on what comes in. Now, if you can define your processes in a way that proactively tells you what steps to take and at the same time provides a mechanism for inputting the results at each stage, you can be sure that you've met all the appropriate steps every time and consolidate the results of your evaluations in a centralized place to review later. So we've just included a few examples of how you might gather contract terms and grading information, as well as how you might report on those results for those processes. Now, we recognize that there are two types of grading processes that your organization might use. In this case, we're going to describe the process of grading incoming inventory for things like spoilage and ultimately use that to determine what you'd pay for that delivery. Now, the other type of grading is where you receive a single product into inventory, and then based on the grading process, you may have multiple different products as a result of your grading procedures. The second scenario represents a different process which we can easily accommodate, but it won't be the focal point of today's presentation. Now, for this example, we'll use onions as the primary product to be graded at shipment. We'll start with a blanket purchase order, which usually begins in the accounting system. Now, this can also be considered a contract to purchase and is set up with a grower. Now, after that contract or blanket order is set up, you would receive against the order over the course of the harvest season. Then ultimately settle up with that grower when you're working at the end of the season. For example, we expect to purchase 1 million pounds of onions from Phillips Farms, and you can see that this order is coming from field A10358. We can also see that the order was placed on 10/26/2011, and we expect that this order will be completed by the end of August 2012. Now, that's some very basic information, and it's probably something that you already have today either on paper or in a business system. But we can enhance this process by tying the information together with your grading steps from this particular product or others that you might receive over time. So based on the item selected, an onion in this case, we've identified a set of grading criteria for this product. Now, these line items can be specific to each product that you order, so in the event that you have multiple raw ingredients coming into inventory, you can take the appropriate predefined steps to grade those products as well. Now, these steps might also vary based on the grower, but we won't cover that scenario in today's presentation. But based on this example, we can use the information related to the contract to negotiate with growers and record how those agreements are handled during settlement. For example, you might have an acceptable level of frost, in this case 5%, but anything over that, and you might adjust the contract to reduce the settlement amount for that shipment. And adjustments might be either positive or negative. For example, we can see here that we have a negative adjustment for onions under 3.5 inches and a positive adjustment for onions over 3.5 inches. So now that we've graded the shipment and captured it electronically, we can take a look at the lot card. Now, your product lots are set up at the receiving area, and the information about this is tied back to the specific grower and field, as well as other attributes related to the original contract. As we move ahead, we can see lot grading steps associated with that lot. So we look before at the contract grading steps, which look very similar to the lot grading steps we have on the screen now. However, this information is related to a specific lot that you're receiving at any given time, and information is entered into this area and related to that specific shipment for that product. Now, after the data is entered, the results can be printed and reviewed, so let's go ahead and look at that now. So now we're looking at the grading results for a specific receipt. So at the top you can see the grower, the lot number, the date received, the contract number, the truck ID, and an internal contract code. And in the body of the report you can see all of the grading results. Now at the bottom you can see related to the contract based on the grading procedures, and you'll notice that we have base rates as well as the adjusted rates for the percent of product with adjustments. And this will end up giving you the total amount due to the grower. Now, and this information can be aggregated if you do prepayments at settlement at the end of your growing season, so it doesn't have to be settled with the grower at this point and can be completed at a later date once all of the shipments for this vendor and product have been received. Nevertheless, at the end result of this process is the adjusted invoice. And based on what we received, we now have adjusted orders with adjustments for splits and dirt and foreign materials in this case. Now, most companies in the food and beverage industry are already doing this process today, but the issue for them is that all the information is in disconnected systems and stored manually, and that requires either manual data entry or duplicate data entry to create accurate adjusted invoices and other records. So the value of what we're showing you is an integrated, online, real-time system that tracks all of this information for you automatically at each step in the process. And it ultimately reduces the risk of any data entry errors or other mistakes that might happen over the course of this process. For the purposes of the presentation, we've also included a few reports to give you a general idea of what information is being collected and how you can access this information at any time along the way. Now, this report shows each grower and the receipts, and also shows the common categories for each receipt and the grower. Another view might be a grower summary report. In this case, it's for asparagus broken down by grower, receipt, and the pounds and dollars per receipt. Now, there's an unlimited array of options to review the information stored in the system. We've only shown you a few examples, but the information can be displayed and distributed according to your unique reporting requirements and accessible to anyone with access to the system based on roles, security, or preference. So now that we've covered how you might capture this information, let's talk again about why it's valuable. Once you have the contract terms entered into the database, like eFood for example, you then have the opportunity to let the information work for you, rather than having to search and manually determine what's relevant. Now let's discuss the impact that automation has on your overall operations. Start with receiving. In standardizing the grading procedures by product, you ensure that the proper steps are being taken to accurately evaluate the incoming ingredients into your inventory. This means you can verify the inventory you receive, and it can be used in ways that meet your production specifications as well as your customers' expectations. Next, capturing the resulting data within the same system means that you're gathering timely information and reducing the chance of erroneous data that might be manually entered into the system at a later time. Now that you have all of your grading processes completed and the results are input, you're able to relate what was received against what you expected to bring into your production or distribution processes based on your contract terms. By connecting these results to the contract terms in the system, you can also ensure that you're paying your vendors the right amounts based on the actual delivery by shipment, and you have the documentation to prove it now as well as into the future. Lastly, you can use this information to report on vendor performance, and that can help you evaluate each supplier based on your contract terms and the products you've received from them over time, ultimately helping you select the best supplier in certain situations to meet your internal and external demand expectations. To find out more about best practices for managing data and process within your food and beverage organization, please visit the following links. Additionally, if you'd like to read more about how to better manage your vendor contract and grading processes, or to learn about how these processes are accommodated in the eFood solution, you can reach out to us after this presentation and we'll address those specific scenarios with you. If the information we covered today has raised questions about your current process, or to find out what could be improved at your company, we're offering everyone a free business process assessment valued at $400. Feel free to reach out to me at 503-608-3683 or email me at obiek@esopro.com to schedule an assessment or to discuss additional details. Additionally, if you'd like to learn more about the eFood solution or to schedule a demonstration based on your specific requirements, please reach out to me at your convenience. Now, this concludes the prepared portion of our presentation today, and I'll be sure to follow up with you if you reach out to me at sales@esopro.com or 503-608-3601. Thank you all for your time, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.